Your DNA can say a lot about you, and soon it's going to mean a lot more to the healthcare industry, not to mention investors. Specifically, I'm talking about genomics. Tarik Aeta, healthcare analyst with TD Asset Management, is here to explain. Tarik, in simple terms, what is genomics?
Yeah. So a genome, quite simply, is a fancy term that refers to the entirety of your genetic code, which is stored in your DNA. And genomic medicine, by extension, is simply using the science of genomics, but in the clinical care of patients, ranging from identifying illnesses all the way to treating them. And the reason why genomic medicine is so important is that it holds the key in driving the next large wave of innovation in healthcare and can ultimately touch the lives of millions of people worldwide.
And this is leading to real innovation, correct?
Yes, so a lot of real innovation is coming to the field and has accelerated in recent years thanks to three key things. Firstly, we've seen huge advances in gene sequencing, which lets us read the letters of the genetic code. Second, we've had big advances in computing power and machine learning, which lets us crunch the mountains of raw data that are now being generated. And last but not least, there's also the increasing growth of gene therapies, which now allows us to even modify the letters of the genetic code.
Now, what about costs? Because they've come down significantly recently.
Yes, so as you can see in the chart, in the green line, costs have come down significantly since 2007, and this has been driven by a technology called sequencing by synthesis from Illumina.
Now, what does that mean?
Yeah, so what the technology does, it takes long strands of DNA, which has billions of letters, and chops it down into millions of little pieces. Then the Illumina sequencers sequence those millions of pieces in parallel, what they call massive parallel sequencing, which materially speeds up the process. And finally, all this data is put back together, just like a massive jigsaw puzzle, but with millions of pieces. As a result, the cost of sequencing has fallen from $10 million per individual back in 2007 to less than $700 today, which has been an incredible decline. And to put it into perspective, compared to Moore's law, which is the yellow line, the decline has been over 100 times larger what we've seen in the world of computing over the past decade.
Well, that's very significant. Now, how is that technology being used today and in the future?
Yeah. So with the cost of sequencing having fallen, the technology is now being used increasingly in the clinic versus previously being isolated to the world of academia. For example, the technology is already being used to complete non-invasive prenatal screening, so parents can get a safer and more accurate test for conditions such as Down syndrome and more entry-level tests, all the way to genetic diseases and more advanced tests. However, the most promising use for the technology is using it to develop an early cancer screening test. This would be a huge breakthrough for society, as it would allow us to catch more cancers early, when they can be more easily treated, and materially improve cancer survival rates.
And when you talk about early, you talk about stage 1, stage 2 versus the later stages 3 and 4.
Yeah, correct. The idea would be try to catch all cancers early in stage 1 and 2 versus current technology, which only allows us to catch certain kinds of cancers early.
Given all of that, from an investor standpoint, how do you participate in this market?
Yeah, so one way to invest behind the theme is to buy biotech companies in the gene therapy space. However, the problem here is that most of these companies are free cash flow negative, and historically most experimental drugs ultimately fail. As such, there's a lot of risk playing the theme this way. However, one way we prefer to invest is by buying companies in the life science tools industry. And these basically make the picks and shovel that enable all innovation across the field of genomics.
Okay, so give us some of the attractive names that you like in this space.
So one name we like is Illumina, a US-listed name, which is the world leader in gene sequencing, with their machine sequencing over 90% of all DNA in the world today. And quite simply, what we like about Illumina is that they benefit from the secular growth of genomics, regardless of which drug company develops the next big drug, regardless of which university has the next big breakthrough. As basically at the end of the day, the majority of institutions use Illumina machines, which makes Illumina kind of like the Intel of genomics. Another name we do like is Thermo Fisher Scientific, and they make many of the tools and supplies needed to manufacture and discover drugs. Think of them like Amazon.com, but for scientists, with a massive catalog of both proprietary and third-party products that serve over 400,000 customers globally, ranging from universities all the way to drug companies. As such, virtually every lab in the world uses Thermo Fisher's product to one degree or another.
Tarik, thank you very much for your information.
Yeah, thank you for having me.